Hi everyone, this video will be a quick one. I saw a message a little while back asking about what jungling meant, so I thought I might as well make a quick video explaining the terminology, how it affects Unite, and what's sort of expected of you, and sort of little bits and tips that you should know. In this video I'll be making a lot of references to League of Legends. That's just sort of my reference point when it comes to MOBAs. To get started on that, for example, in League of Legends there are 3 lanes usually: the top lane, the middle lane, and the bottom lane. And everything in between the lanes is what is usually referred to as the jungle. That's where a bunch of neutral monster camps spawn that usually one character goes in at the start of the game, farms up with, and then after a while they pop into lanes and try to get them ahead. They snowball, they jump in, they try to do what they can in order to influence their lanes in order to go their way. In Pokemon Unite, there are only 2 lanes. There's a top lane and a bottom lane. And then the central area, which is everything in between, is what you would refer to as the jungle in this game. And it works relatively the same way. Instead of neutral monster camps, there are the wild Pokemon camps, the Bouffalant, the Ludicolo, the Corphishes that spawn around. And what your job is relatively the same thing as well. I'll get into that in a moment. I believe a jungler has 2 jobs. The first of which is to be the one responsible for all of the main monster camps and boss monsters that spawn across the map. In this game's case, I guess it's the wild Pokemon that spawn in the central area, as well as the 2 boss monsters, Rotom and Dreadnought, and then finally Zapdos at the end. Your second job as a jungler is to be the one who supports your lanes. If they're ahead, you help them stay ahead. If they're behind, you help push them back into the game. A truly effective jungler is one who makes perfect use of both their buffs, the wild Pokemon that spawn across the map, as well as keeping an eye on the timing of what's going on their lanes, because you can never be too sure how your lanes are going to turn out. I feel that a truly effective jungler is one who is able to make good use of their buffs, as well as keeping an eye on what's going on their lanes, and picking the perfect time in which to make certain decisions. For example, if I've just gotten Bouffalant buff, or something that slows down enemy Pokemon as I attack them, that's a perfect time in order to maybe sweep down into the bottom lane and try to get a takedown on the 2 enemy Pokemon who are pushed up a little bit too far onto my teammates, for example. Another good example of good decision making as a jungler would be to make sure that you have Ludicolo buff active for whenever you go to secure, say, Rotom, Dreadnought, or Zapdos in the end. Ludicolo buff is incredibly helpful because it does extra damage to wild Pokemon as they are lower HP. That, stacked on top of the held item Fluffy Tail, can really make the difference when it comes to securing an objective that might be stolen away from you in a big fight. We've all seen the memes on social media, we've all played the games ourselves, where Zapdos really makes the difference between winning and losing no matter how the first 8 minutes goes in the game. So of course, an effective jungler prepares for this, and has Fluffy Tail and Ludicolo buff ready for when Zapdos spawns, so that they can try to swing things in their favour as best as possible. There are 2 kinds of junglers in this game. The first are the ones that are really strong early, and can jump into fights very quickly and explosively and snowball your team from the start. The most popular picks for that right now are Zeraora and Machamp. The second kind of junglers, the ones that take central area, I believe are the ones that are weaker at the start of the game, but mitigate that by leveling up faster by being in the jungle and thus getting the solo EXP, and then coming into later fights, say the Dreadnoughts and the Rotom fights, at a higher level than they would have been if they started on the lanes. A good example of this is the growing popularity of Jungle Cinderace. Gengar and Garchomp also fill this void as well. In the description of this video I'm going to leave a link to a tweet where I put out a list that essentially shows you what Pokemon fills what category in terms of the 2 that I just described. The last little bit of early wisdom that I think I can impart is to always stay on top of your levels, your EXP, and thus the impact you will have on the game because of it. I put out a tweet a while back explaining how your level was the most important number in the game. That unfortunately hasn't changed and is still the case. If your opponent is 3 levels up on you, you will have a terrible time trying to secure objectives, win fights, and ultimately win the game. To that effect, anytime you see any of the camps that spawn across the map, the Ordinos, the Vespiquens, the Ludicolos, the Bouffalants, it's in your best interest to make use of them as best you can in order to gain EXP and to push yourself further ahead. The sheer importance of EXP gain is exactly why Dreadnought is a lot more contested than Rotom in higher level games, because the level of EXP that you get from securing Dreadnought, especially multiple times, really stacks up and can just make the difference between whether or not you win or lose that engagement as Zapdos at the end of the game, because you happen to have 2 or 3 levels up on your opponent. That's mostly it for the things I wanted to cover in this. If you really liked this, if this was helpful to you, or if not, if you have any feedback, please let me know. If you want to see more of things like this, then, also let me know. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope your games go well.